Welcome back, viewers at home, now to discuss quite a crucial yet often overlooked aspect of mental health. In this regards, the impact of holiday periods on children. I am joined by Norleen Zulu, early childhood development specialist, who will share, some insight into the challenges faced by children whose home are not safe havens, particularly those who rely on school as a refuge from family conflict. Now, she will talk us through the strategies for supporting these children's mental well being and ensuring that the holiday season brings them comfort, not added stress. Nolene, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening to you too.
The idea of a home not being a safe haven, I mean, it's not a far-fetched thought, but it's quite sad to hear of and not want to do nothing about. And I'd like for you to just start by educating us, all viewers at home, myself included, in terms of how holiday periods can be particularly difficult for children who don't have a stable home environment.
Okay, thank you for that question. It is absolutely phenomenal that you are asking that question because home should be the stable and the safe environment. But also, the beauty of life is that school is also the same, it adopts the same approach. So, school offers children security, it offers children a sense of belonging, it gives them structure, and for some, it even brings along the meals that they need on a daily basis. Now, once that is taken away, it means their stability is not there, their security is not there, their structure is not there. That importance of feeling like you belong to a community and you're a worthy member is taken away. And that can be very distressful to the children.
Mm. And I think with that, maybe the child is playing with my child, from the neighborhood, and we tend to see a child's behavior. You're like, oh, this child is a nuisance, and you don't get to see it as it's a symptom to a greater problem to say this child is coming from an unsafe home. Can you talk us through what are
Mm.
some of these common emotional as well as behavioral issues that children may exhibit when they don't have a safe home environment, particularly during this holiday period?
So again, these behaviors, you will often see them in the school outside of the home setting because you're not privy to what's happening within closed doors. But children will often act out. So you're going to see a lot of aggressive behavior. If a child was doing well in school, you'll see some regression in their performance in terms of their academics, but also in their interactions with their peers and the interactions with the teachers. They become often withdrawn and they don't want to interact with other children, or when forced to, will always pick a fight or like exude aggressive behavior. There's also a sort of sadness that you will see in the children. Some may not be physically outwardly aggressive, but they might withdraw into themselves. So they'll refuse to participate in activities. They will not often answer questions when asked. They will sit in the back of the classroom and they will generally self isolate. Some of
Mm.
them will start telling you about issues of fear, anxiety, of sadness, or being sick. They'll constantly tell you, I don't feel well, I don't feel well. So the symptoms are similar to a lot of symptoms. So it takes knowing your students to pick up when there's an
Mm.
anomaly.
Mm. I guess this is now quite a stressful, activity for a teacher who has more than like 20 students in a class. And I think for such extremes, what advice and strategies do you have for, caretakers or educators who have to now give support to those students and not leaving behind the parents?
Mm. So I think for the educator, like you said, it's a bit difficult managing 30 or 40 children. But the importance is for you to make every child feel like a worthy member of that
Mm.
classroom, to make them feel like their feelings are valid, to make them feel safe, like have a safe space to say, if there is something going on, you can come and speak to me and I am here. So it falls upon the teacher to be genuine, to be genuinely caring, and to be interested enough to say, I can take 5 minutes out of my lunchtime and speak to you, and it can be solely between me and you. So, as a teacher or an educator, you would need to create that safe space. And
Mm.
as well as a caregiver, you need to be able to have that space where a child can come to you openly with their challenges and not be afraid. And often, if the abuse or the I don't want to use the word abuse, but if the negative behavior is happening at home, then children are not going to come to you. But you will see as an educator what is going on and try as much as you can to pay attention to the children. So to tap into social and emotional learning and go into teaching children about their emotions and their feelings, because that becomes an open door or an open avenue for you to discuss what is going on in the
Mm.
home or in the child's life.
Now, Norleen, some of the tips that you've shared now in terms of granting that support, how exactly in evaluating that allows the child to now be able to sort of maneuver or build that sense of resilience in a child and providing them with tools to cope with difficult situations beyond, being in a safe haven of school? I don't know if my
Mm.
question is clear to you.
Okay, I think I get you. So, in terms of building resilience, resilience is important for every single person, not just children in school, but for everyone, because as life would have it, we will all encounter tough times. Now, what resilience does, it says that no matter what you're going through or how hard it is, you have the coping tools to deal with the situation, healthy coping techniques. So, what we need to do again as the caregiver or the teacher or the parent is to teach the children these healthy coping techniques so that they are emotionally resilient, and when they encounter challenges they know exactly how to handle them. And that can be simple things like asking for help,
Mm.
going onto a chat line or a chatbot and saying, I'm experiencing this, telling someone that I'm not feeling okay, or breathing exercises, or communication, self regulation, conflict resolution. So there's a lot of ways to build resilience, but we need to give the children the tools so that when they encounter these challenges, they know exactly what to do.
Hmm. Speaking on the tools, are there any community resources or programs that you'd recommend for families who are truly struggling to provide a safe and supportive home environment for their children?
Yeah, so okay, in terms of resources, so first of all, there would be obviously the helplines that we can use, like SADAC and Lifeline and Childline. These are toll-free numbers that you can call if you have access to a phone and have a conversation with somebody. They are qualified, trained personnel that will help you and will give you the steps to take. Secondly, there's community centers. In a lot of communities, there's always a community center that a child can go to or a parent can take their child to when they can receive help. Even our local clinics can direct us to, if we need professional help like psychologists, they can direct us to that. And over and above that, we've got our religious groups or religious centers where children can go to access help, and non governmental organizations within the communities that open up their doors to children and are willing to. So, depending on where you are, it just takes a little bit of research, but you can find help and it doesn't have to cost anything, especially with the religious centers.
Amazing. That's lovely. And do you think that holidays can also, outside of it being such a very, considering the conversation that we're having, a very unsafe time for a child, can it also present an opportunity for children and families to strengthen their bonds, building strong relationships? And if so, how?
That is such a good question. So, holidays are definitely the perfect time for us to build bonds with our children because we live an emotionally taxing life, but also very busy lives. So, sometimes we don't have time to bond with our children. And over the holiday, so say it's a national holiday, like over Christmas time, we are all at home. At that point in time, you can create some family traditions where you spend time with your children. You can cook together, you can eat together, you can have parties, you can play games, you can take walks, and you can rest. You have time to bond with your child at that time. And also, it's just such a fun time to teach on these values that we talk about love, about presence, about being there for your children, to play even the traditional games, like, playing with the ball outside with your child. That's a good habit to adopt, a healthy habit to adopt, because aside from you keeping your body healthy, it's a good bonding time that has no distractions, that has no rules, that has no dictations, but it's just you and your child and you being present for them. It's also an opportunity for you to be intentional about that, to set out to say, I haven't had time to catch up with my child. I hardly know who my child is. So as we play, I'm going to try and dig deep and ask some questions and prod and get to know my child. So holidays are the best time to actually engage with your children.
Mhm. And with that, what advice would you share for educators who know that, okay, when it's holidays, they don't have access to the student, to offer them that, I'll talk to you at break time between myself and you. It's going to be in secret in that sense. What
Mm.
support or what advice would you share with them in terms of how they can, address their concerns about the emotional well-being of their students during this break?
Okay, so that's double-edged sword question for me. First of all, I feel like when you open up a relationship with learners, it's easy to sort of pick up when something is going wrong, even without necessarily asking questions.
Mm,
So there's steps that we can take. Some are very severe, but some need to be taken. So, for example, if you realize that there is a challenge in this home, so we can do a tip off anonymous with Department of Social Development, depending on what is going on,
mm,
for them to just have a look out and slide in an address and say, I'm worried about ABC. Can you go and have a look at this place? Secondly, the community. Again, I always go back to this. We've grown up on this notion that I always say Desmond Tutu coined so well, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, and because of that, we are because of other people, right? So in your community, I think it falls on all of us, aside from the educators, to look at the next child as our own, to keep an eye out and to try and take measures when we see something is wrong. So, for example, if I fear there is abuse going on in my neighbor's house and I know that this child goes to school X, I can go to the school and say, without being putting myself in a bad space, please look out for A, B, C, D. And also for
mm,
children to know that they are very valued, they are worthy members of the society. And that can only come from the classroom, from the teacher teaching them that they are valued and that they are loved. And also, again, telling them, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel comfortable in your area, there is A, B, C places you can go to get help. Sometimes you don't even need to ask questions because you can see a child may come into the house haggard, a child may come into, not sorry, not the house, the school, haggard, torn, hungry. You can tell something is wrong. And it's hard to push them to give you information.
mm,
But then if you look into that community and say, I live in X community, there's a community hall there, and there's these people that deal with this, then I can say to the child, please go here if ever you need help. So give them the resources, give them the tools. And like I said earlier, teach them the coping techniques. You're not there, but your lessons go with them and they stay with them. So they know if they're feeling very uneasy or very uncomfortable or very angry, I can go for a walk and come back with my mind a bit calmer and I'm a bit self regulated and I can face whatever challenges are going on.
mm. And I think speaking on the, role played by community, what happens when the community is despondent to the fact that no, we've tried, we've reached out, but there hasn't been change, there hasn't been, much difference. What would be your message to them tonight?
To be honest, I don't think if we try and if we've tried enough, we won't get a response.
Mm,
It's when for evil to prevail, it takes good men to sit back and do nothing. It's when we see what's going on and we talk behind closed doors, but we do nothing about it. If we all honestly and in all earnest get up and say, I am worried about this, and go to the necessary authorities, they will respond. So, to the communities and people that are watching, remember every child needs you just as you were a child once and you were guided. It is your duty to take care of the next generation. So, do your part, be honest about it. Don't do things out of malice. Don't be upset with somebody and then go and start a fire at the police station. But be vigilant in watching out for our children, looking after our children. Be your neighbor's keeper. Don't do things that are not right or look aside because these children need us. And as luck would have it, we're going into Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's a good time for us to actually take stock of what is happening in our back doors and looking at, are our homes a safe space for our children? Are we providing exactly what we expect from other people for our children?
And Nolene, with that, I'd like to ask a final message from you that you'd like to leave us with regarding supporting the emotional well-being of children, particularly during this holiday period.
I think the only message I'd love to share with everybody is that mental health disorders are not an event. It is a lifelong journey. So it takes all of us to work together in ensuring that we handle these issues with learning about the mental health disorders and educating everybody around us about them, opening up conversations, as always I say, in our personal spaces about this and what can be done, and actually looking out, looking around us, looking to see what anybody is challenged with. unfortunately, statistics currently say about 400 million people world over battle with mental health disorder, with neurological disorder, and psychosocial problems. And we can play our part by holding our neighbor's hand, getting information, sharing information, and being there. Let's break the stigma and the discrimination towards these things and tackle them head on because they are there and our children need us to show up for them.
Hmm. Norleen, thank you once again for joining us and really empowering us with information and insight in terms of how we can do better to protect the young or the little ones who are dependent on us at that. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much again for giving me a place to share my ideas, my thoughts, and I suppose a family to
Mm.
grow and deal with these issues.
Viewers at home, that was my guest Norleen Zulu, who is an early childhood development specialist. And tonight we were really understanding how we can really support children during this holiday period around child mental health and how we can be the support system and structure that they need and not putting ourselves and our emotions first beyond, their needs and their emotional and, psychological well-being at that.